I'm Cody Stoots. Welcome into the channel. Plenty to get to as we get you ready for Texans and Ravens on the video this evening. A live stream for you late at night. If you're watching the next day, appreciate you checking in. Plenty to get to. What do we make of this Ravens team as the Texans are headed to Baltimore to open up the 2023 NFL season on the road? Don't beat yourself on offense. Slow down those Baltimore linebackers. And what if Lamar and company just don't click? Plus, Bobby Slowick said something about CJ Stroud today that got me so excited for the rookie quarterback. Appreciate everybody tuning in. The comment section is open and active. I want you to jump in there. We'll interact there throughout the course of the program. And on your way down to the description, throw down a thumbs up for this video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Check me out on Houston Football, where I do all my writing about the Houston Texans, www.houfootball.com. So much to get to. We've even got the Survivor League for Houston Football and the YouTubers down below. You can join that down below at your convenience. Plenty to get to. Let's talk a little bit about the opponent for the Houston Texans this weekend, the 2023 Baltimore Ravens. Now, I'll go out and up front tell you this. I believe the Baltimore Ravens are going to play for the Super Bowl. This is a team that I am very invested in. This is a team that I believe a lot in over the course of this 2023 season. Lamar Jackson, healthy, with more weapons and a modernized offense. I believe this Ravens team is going to play for a Super Bowl. I don't believe they're going to win it, but I believe they're going to play for a Super Bowl. I also don't believe that is the team that is playing on Sunday. The Super Bowl caliber, world champion caliber Baltimore Ravens, the win the AFC North Baltimore Ravens, I don't believe that's the team that is playing Sunday against the Houston Texans. That's what I believe they can get to. That's where I believe this Ravens team can go to as a team, as an organization. But that's not the team that they're going to be playing as on Sunday when they host the Houston Texans. There's a lot of stuff that changed with this Baltimore team from last year to this year. Most notably, Lamar's in the lineup. The last time we saw this Ravens team, they were running the likes of Tyler Huntley out there at quarterback, but Lamar's in the lineup. They added one of my favorite draft prospects in the draft in Zay Jones. Odell Beckham's on this team. Rashad Bateman, who is a wide receiver that I've liked for a couple of years now, is healthy and ready to play for the Ravens. And I know Mark Andrews is on the injury report and a little dinged up, but they still got Mark Andrews. Really solid offensive line, healthy rushing attack with guys that have been there for a few years in Baltimore. It's a pretty stout offense when you think about this Ravens team. Now, the offensive line, it's still really solid in Baltimore. That right tackle spot, something to pay attention to. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. And then from the defensive perspective, this Baltimore Ravens defense has pretty much been good since 2001. It's not every year that they're at the exact same level, but this is a pretty darn good defense, and it's led by a couple of players in the middle, which we'll discuss in depth here in just a few. But this is a solid Baltimore team that you're taking on, and we'll break down just the general feel of the opponent each week. And right now, with nothing having happened for the Baltimore Ravens yet, and really nobody of note playing any significant time in the preseason, I just feel strongly that this is a Baltimore team that's going to be dangerous by the time the year rolls on and gets going. I just don't think that's the exact team that's going to play on Sunday. So, dangerous Ravens team, tough matchup. When you looked at the opponents for 2023 before the schedule came out, you knew going to Baltimore to face the Ravens was not going to be easy. Is it ideal that that's week one of the NFL season? Hell no, it's not ideal that it's week one. But you get that. You get a nice test early, a sense of where you are as, a head coach in his first time being a head coach, an offensive coordinator in his first time being an offensive coordinator, a rookie quarterback in his first NFL start ever. You get to start off with a really good amount of data. And if you want to be something in the AFC in a year or two or three, you know that the Ravens are pretty much one of those standards in the AFC. You think about who the standards are in the AFC, the Kansas City Chiefs come to mind, the Baltimore Ravens come to mind, and everybody around them kind of moves around a little bit. But those two teams right now are the standard, and you're going to get the opportunity to test your mettle against one of those standards in the AFC with this Ravens team. We'll get into a little bit more about this matchup, but I want to get to the comment section as well. Appreciate everybody tuning in live, and if you're catching us after the fact the next day, the comment section down below is active, and there's plenty to get to. So, good to see Brandon, the Touch of Trent, Jim Stamos, Little Jesus, Sean, appreciate you jumping in. Brandon, definitely interested in the scheme and overall game plan Bobby has drawn up for us. We'll talk about the offense for sure. Rick, good to see you. El Mario, thank you. Eddie, Johnny, Texas Taz. Sean, good to see you. I mentioned you. Johnny Lambert, appreciate you jumping in. Dave Jones. Cody, I don't believe you now. If Baltimore make a trade, sure. I like Baltimore a lot. I feel like they are pretty damn dangerous when it comes to the landscape of the AFC. If you have a question that I don't get to, I will try to start and get to it a little bit later on in the program. So, appreciate everybody jumping in on the comments. Let's get to the don't beat yourself on offense. Look, we'll talk about the defense slowing down Lamar Jackson, trying to beat Lamar Jackson, trying to keep them off the scoreboard. That's more difficult. That's harder to do. Let's talk a little bit about moving the ball against this Baltimore Ravens defense. Really good defense. Really good defense that this Ravens team has. They have a really solid floor. They don't beat themselves. They don't make a lot of mistakes. They don't give you a lot of free downs. And they love to dominate teams on third down. So this is a team that is not going to give you a lot of opportunities. And you'll hear me say this a lot about the Houston Texans until it's not true, because it's been true for a couple of years and it will remain true until it's not true. This is a team that has a very small margin for error. And so small things that bother other teams this much bother the Texans this much. So you think back to these past couple of seasons and even 2020 with Deshaun Watson, and even really a lot of the time when Deshaun Watson was here. You think back to a lot of that. A lot of mistakes the Texans made, some sunk them. I mean, I can remember at different times, even when Deshaun was playing well at quarterback, a penalty, a false start, a hold, and that was almost a guarantee that they were going to punt the football. And this Texans offense right now, 5 yards, 10 yards, first and 15, second and 20, stuff like that, that's going to sink this Texans offense. So you have to minimize the mistakes. This is not an offense, a quarterback, or really a team that can overcome a mistake just yet. Could they get there? Could they find themselves a couple of playmakers? Can you overcome some of those mistakes later in the year? Sure. Week 1 on the road in Baltimore, a holding call is going to crush you. And I think to the fact that you're playing perhaps a rookie 6th-round pick at center. I think to the fact you're playing perhaps a former right tackle turned back into a guard in Josh Jones at left guard. And I start to think about, oh man, that's a walking holding call. That's a walking false start. Any little mistake's going to be a big mistake for the Texans. So penalties, turnovers, a missed field goal, even just something, a dropped pass could be something that dooms a drive for this Texans team. And we hear it over and over and over and over and over again about execute. If you just execute, if you do your job and you execute, you're going to be fine. And that's kind of the stuff that DeMeco Ryans has talked about this week with this team. He's like, look, first game of the week, or first game of the season, first game week, yeah, you do a little scouting. You try to figure out the opponent a little bit. But for the most part, it's about you. It's about you. Take care of your business. Do what you're capable of doing, execute what you believe is the necessary game plan. And that's very much what it is for this offense. They cannot have Noah Brown dropping a ball after CJ Stroud rolls out and makes a nice play to get the play extended and get the ball to Brown. They can't have Tank Dell, false start. They can't have George Fant get a holding penalty. I would bet you that without the Ravens helping them on some of those drives, a penalty more often than not will lead to a punt by this team. So I don't want to sit here and act like I'm demanding perfection from them. That's just not what you can expect from a team that's playing its first game with a rookie quarterback and a first-time play caller and so many moving pieces that you haven't practiced a ton with. But small mistakes will be big mistakes for this team. And that's something to pay attention to on Sunday. And that will be a constant for this organization going forward until they can prove that they can overcome some of those mistakes, until CJ Stroud goes out there and, okay, it's 3rd and 13, and he can go out there and make a 15-yard pass to somebody. And by the way, saw that a couple times in training camp. It'd be like 3rd and 12, and boom, next thing you know, Dalton Schultz is there for 14 yards. It's like, I saw it a couple times in training camp, but week 1 on the road in Baltimore against the Ravens, it's a little bit different. It's a little bit different. So don't beat yourself. Don't let these little mistakes that should be little mistakes be big mistakes for you on the road. We'll talk a little bit more about the Baltimore Ravens defense, but I do want to get to some of your comments as well. Altion, appreciate you jumping in. Ooh, Lions did it to Mahomes. Will is going to keep Lamar on his toes. We'll talk about the Texans defense and the Texans chances to stop Lamar a little bit later. Man, let's hope CJ doesn't run for his life all game. Yeah, the offensive line is going to be big, man. The offensive line is going to be real big. And the moving pieces, the changing parts of it is something that is going to be really, really interesting to pay attention to. I saw one of the comments that hits on exactly what we're going to talk about next. Johnny Lambert, Roquan Smith and Patrick Queen going to be a problem in a game where the Texans need to run the ball. Johnny, you're on the same page. That linebacker love that's been happening for the Baltimore Ravens. By the way, if you got one, cheers to the working men and women. Cheers to all the commenters and people viewing as well. An unnamed beverage could be your beverage right here. The linebacker love. I thought it was interesting when CJ Stroud was at the podium this week that he volunteered the names Roquan Smith and Patrick Queen. And following that up and asking other players about those two guys, and those two guys right there in that middle of that Baltimore Ravens defense, it became apparent that that's the engine for this defense now. You think back to some of the other times in Baltimore's recent history where they've had like the Matthew Judons, the Terrell Suggs, but like Ray Lewis there in the middle, Ed Reed behind him, like things like that. Like the way it's set up now is not exactly that Ray Lewis defense, but it goes through that middle linebacker spot, that inside linebacker spot. Patrick Queen, Roquan Smith, those two guys' names got volunteered by CJ Stroud. So I started to pay a little bit more attention to the conversation around them. And you start to think about how those two guys can affect the game. Dynamite athletes. Roquan Smith's one of the absolute best at the position right now. And like, okay, well, when this offense is struggling, when things aren't going well, when there's a play that didn't go the right way, the safe space for this offense, the comfort for this offense is running the football. Well, it's going to be damn hard to run the football on Patrick Queen and Roquan Smith, not to mention the other 5 defenders in the front 7 of the Baltimore Ravens. And that was going to be the case if you had the expected offensive line that you believed you were going to have. That was going to be the case if you had Laramie Tunsil, Kenyon Green, Juice Scruggs, Shaq Mason, and Titus Howard. Well, guess who you don't have in this game? No Kenyon Green. He's not playing this year. No Juice Scruggs. He's on IR. No Titus Howard. He's on IR. So you got George Fant and then question mark at center and guard. I believe it's going to be Jarrett Patterson at center. And I believe it will be Josh Jones at left guard with Michael Dieter active in case Jones is not playing well. That's what I believe the offensive line will be. And then obviously Laramie Tunsil and Shaq Mason and their spots. And we've been talking about how George Fant's going to fill in for Titus Howard. And so with that group, not a lot of time practicing together. In fact, I would tell you 3 practices together, 4 practices together as this offensive line. So not a lot of time to gel and mesh. I asked D'Amico Ryans about that, and he basically said if every individual player does their job, you don't have to worry as much about the gel and mesh of the offensive line. And so it will be imperative that whoever's playing center, and again, I believe it's going to be Patterson, and whoever's playing guard, and again, I believe it's going to be Josh Jones, that they're comfortable in that zone blocking scheme and they can muddy things up, mess things up for Queen and Roquan Smith and these other defenders that the Ravens are going to send in there so that Dameon Pierce, Devin Singletary are getting to the second level. It's going to be imperative that they can pass block when the Ravens do send a little bit of heat, because Stroud's going to need some time. I know Marlon Humphrey is unlikely to play in this game, but there's still some guys that can cover, and there's some guys that can really hurt you in this Ravens secondary. Kyle Hamilton wasn't as good as Jalen Petrie was last year, but Kyle Hamilton's a really nice player. Marcus Williams, who is a free agent that they added from the Saints before last year, who is their other safety, he's a really nice player. And I would think that Rock Ya-Sin, a guy that they ended up with that I still think has a little bit of juice to his game. He's bounced around the NFL a little bit. I think Rock Ya-Sin is a guy that, has a little bit of juice to him as well. So it's going to be, you got to get enough out of this offensive line. And you've had, 10 days or so to kind of mix and match and figure everything out. But it's not fun to think about, okay, if 2 offensive linemen are playing subpar in this game, especially from the interior offensive line standpoint, do you just blow everything up from an offensive perspective? And does it keep you from doing anything and everything? Because Dameon Pierce running the ball well against the Saints, well, it was Dieter and Juice Scruggs. Well, now you maybe don't have Dieter, maybe not going to play him at left guard. You don't have Juice Scruggs at center. So something to pay attention to. And man, Queen and Roquan Smith, 0 and 6 are the guys you got to pay the most attention to on this Ravens defense. They got the volunteered linebacker love from CJ Stroud. Johnny Lambert has a question that we'll get to here right away. The super chats take you to the front of the line from the comments and the questions, and they are greatly appreciated by me here on the channel. Johnny wants to know, is it crazy to think about Shaq Mason playing center and Patterson playing right guard? Center calls the blitz coverages, gap schemes to the line. Rather have a vet. It is a little crazy to think that way because Mason's done none of that. And I get that he's a vet and he may know some of those things, but he hasn't played center and for this team. And he's one of the better right guards in football. He's one of the 10 or so best right guards in football. So you lose something. And Patterson's, from what you can tell from Patterson, the success he had in college, and he talked about it this week, is you got to get in the playbook and you just got to know it. He's been here. I know he hasn't practiced every time in training camp in the preseason, played every time in training camp in the preseason, but he's been here. So you'd hope he knows some of those things. And Mason can help him out a little bit from that standpoint. And I wonder too, if they're going silent or they've got to have the guard tap the center to let him know. I wonder if that's going to be Mason's job at the right guard spot, tapping Patterson, letting him know. You see that from offensive linemen. They're lined up, and then the guard will tap the center or throw his hand out in front of the center's eyes to let him know, hey, it's go time. So I wonder if that's going to be Mason's job as well. So that's something to pay attention to. Look, this offensive line is going to be a conversation point for at least the first 4 or 5 weeks, because even after the first 4 weeks, is Scruggs ready to come back? How does he jump in there? Is Titus Howard ready to come back? And who's the left guard? Like, that's going to be a conversation that we have for maybe 17 weeks. They've got Kendrick Green, Josh Jones, Michael Dieter, Broker, the guy they claimed off waivers, and in theory, Patterson. They've got those 5 guys that can play left guard for the team. once Scruggs is back, Patterson's an option. So you've got 5 guys to play 17 games at left guard. You hope one guy shows up, plays well, takes over the spot. You don't have to worry about it. But they've got some options if it's not looking good right away. But we'll pay attention to the left guard spot all year long. All year long. So that's just something that we're going to have to watch and pay attention to each and every week. Rick believes Dieter's taken over by the second series. Man, he may get the go. He may be the first guy. I can only tell you what I believe will be the case based off of the depth chart and things like that. If they believe in Jones, it was not good. It was not good when he played guard in Arizona. But if they believe in Jones, he's a massive human being. And it would be a really large offensive line. Jones is big. Obviously, Tunsil's big. Fant's not a small guy. Mason's shorter than those guys, but he's very wide. And then Patterson's probably the smallest of them all, but the center usually is. Like, it's going to be a big offensive line if Josh Jones is the left guard. And to me, that usually bodes well for pass blocking, more so than run blocking. The Dieter's in there. He doesn't feel as wide as Jones, but he's got more experience at guard. So it's not going to shock me if Dieter gets the go. He gets elevated from the practice squad to the active roster, and Dieter's the guy that ends up playing left guard. And I'd go as far as to say I'm more comfortable with Dieter, but I'm not at practice. I don't get to see it, and I don't understand. I don't get to see the film and sit down with the coaches and know, oh, well, he doesn't do this or he doesn't do that well. Like, if he was for sure, no question about it, if he was for sure going to be the left guard, they never would have let him hit free agency or hit waivers, excuse me. They would have just kept him on the team. That would be my thought. Couple more comments here. Shaq Mason, a dog. Shaq Mason's got a little bit of living up to do. I don't know that I loved him getting paid before he played a snap, but I understand it to an extent. If he hits free agency or, you don't want to franchise tag him, stuff like that. So, Joe Blue, Jawan Taylor's getting away with a false start big time. Did you watch the game? So I want to ask Tunsil about this tomorrow. And I do wonder if the NFL world's watching what occurred with Jawan Taylor on Thursday Night Football on the season opener. And I wonder if there's going to be coaches that are hammering officials about it. And I wonder if there's going to be offensive linemen that maybe are a little afraid to take that liberty or try to take that liberty. So I actually feel like because it was such a big talking point, maybe it's an extra point of emphasis by the time the weekend gets here that, hey, these offensive linemen can't be leaving early like this. And I know he's not leaving early or he is leaving early. There's some slow motion video where he's the only dude moving on the offensive line. And I also wonder too, and this is something to pay attention to, Tunsil's really good about timing everything out. And a lot of those false starts that Laramie has had over the time as a member of the Texans has been on the center. You talk to people, you pay attention to it a little bit. You watch Laramie look at the center, like, what the hell? A lot of Laramie's false starts, not all of them, but a lot of them have been on the center. He didn't snap the ball right. Tunsil had it timed out. That's something Laramie does really well, is he gets that extra half second because he's timed everything out correctly. So that's one thing to pay attention to. Is Tunsil going to be able to do that? And then the other thing to pay attention to is if Laramie Tunsil has had issues with the center not snapping the ball on time in the past couple of years, and now it's a rookie center that he has worked very little with, is that rookie center going to have issues with Laramie Tunsil and the timing aspect of that? A lot to think about for this rookie center, if it is indeed Jarrett Patterson. You got to help out with the calls. You got to figure out how to slow down the defensive linemen. And then you got to figure out what the linebackers are doing, because they're kind of the key to this whole thing and the way the Ravens play defense. Oh, by the way, then you got to snap the ball on time so Tunsil's not trying to kill you. And then, oh, by the way, CJ's got to get the ball from you and go run the play, and then you got to do whatever you got to do. No easy task. If Jared Patterson performs well in this first opportunity and he's indeed the starting center, kudos to Nick Caserio for having a backup plan to the level of Jared Patterson, because you got to remember, Scott Quessenberry was on this team, and he probably would have been the backup center if Scruggs beat him out. He probably would have been the backup center. So to have a backup plan in Patterson, if that performs well, that'll be kudos to Nick Caserio for putting him on the team. Kudos to Chris Strasser, the offensive line coach, for having him ready to roll. Appreciate everybody tuning in tonight or the next day if you are watching the next day. We talked a lot about the Texans offense, and ultimately I believe this offense is going to be able to move the ball at a decent rate. And part of the reason I feel good about this offense is I've liked the progression from CJ Stroud. Now, he's progressed against preseason defenses and the Texans defense, and this is the Ravens defense. But I do want to play you this comment from Bobby Slowick and talk a little bit more about this defense. Or excuse me, this offense. This was Bobby Slowick about CJ Stroud on Thursday afternoon. And I asked him, I said, look, prepared is going to be what happens in the game. That's how you'll know if a guy's prepared or not. But leading up to the game, has CJ Stroud checked all the boxes that you want him to check? This was Bobby Slowick answering that question.
Yeah, I'd say he's done a fantastic job. His preparation is off the charts. He really means a lot to him. He puts a lot of time in. He puts a lot of work in. That's been a pretty consistent evaluation of him since he got here. I mean, he really grinds on football, and it shows as we go through this week, and he's honed in on who we're playing and what we're doing, and really locked in on the game plan and our specific plays. I mean, he's had for about a week and a half now, every practice has gotten better and better and better, and it's been pretty sharp to begin with from his aspect.
Ooh, and getting better and better and better. It was already pretty sharp to begin with. Ooh, I like that. I like that. That one got me a little excited for what Stroud can bring to the table. And he talked this week. He said, hey, I don't even really remember my college start. It was so long ago. It was only actually 2 years ago. It was against Minnesota. 300 yards passing, 4 touchdowns against the Golden Gophers on the road in Minneapolis, Minnesota. But Stroud's play and the hope that he brings, like, I'd be scared to death if Davis Mills had to go play this game. But Stroud, the calmness, he doesn't seem to get flustered or speed up the game a little too much. And inherently, you're going to see some of that because he's a rookie and it's his first time on the road in the NFL in a real game. But, like, as long as he can keep the game at the same speed that he has practiced at and he has played in the preseason, and even when it does get fast, don't let it speed up too much to the point where he's making some big mistakes. I mean, the preparation and having that guy ready to go, it sounds like CJ Stroud's done his job to have everything ready to go. And then Bobby Slowick, obviously. I like Slowick a lot, and I like the way he talks about his quarterback, and I like the way that he's talked about this offense. So I believe they're going to move the ball. They're going to have to get some breaks from the Ravens. They're going to have to have the defense turn some 7s into 3s. And then from a Texans standpoint, you know, if this is a rock fight, to me, it favors the Texans a little bit because the lower scoring, the better chance the Texans have to keep pace, because all you need is, 6 or 7 plays to go your way. Next thing you know, you're putting some points on the board. But if it's a track meet, I'm not ready to put the Texans in the same, put the same paces on the Texans offense as I am on this Ravens offense. So I did see a question from Brandon I want to get to real quick. Did you see Aaron Wilson report about Tank and the punt return? I'm asking again, maybe scroll past it. Yes, Tank Dell told all of us in the locker room that he's returning punts. So, and he's the punt returner on the depth chart. So Tank Dell's returning punts. And he told us I'm not returning kicks. I'm just returning punts. So he's not going to do kick returns, but he's going to be there on punt return. So yes, Tank Dell is the punt returner for this team. He's listed as the punt returner on the depth chart. He said he was returning punts this week. So Tank Dell will be the punt returner for this team. Darth Derp. What's up, Cody? Go Texans. Go Texans. Darth Derp. Thank you for checking in, Darth Derp. Appreciate you. Okay, we've talked a lot about Texans offense versus Ravens defense. Let's flip it. Let's flip it a little bit. What if it doesn't click right away for the Baltimore Ravens? What if it doesn't click right away? Brand new offense. Offensive coordinator hadn't been in the NFL for a few years. Offensive coordinator that's been coordinating college. And I do feel like it's an important note to mention. Coordinating at Georgia and coordinating at the NFL level, there's some obvious inherent advantages built in coordinating the Georgia Bulldogs and even an SEC schedule and coordinating an NFL team. Everybody's got dudes at the NFL level. Georgia just had more dudes than everyone. And I don't want to downplay what Georgia accomplished because they're the two-time defending national champions. And even against a dude-laden Ohio State team and a really solid TCU team, they were able to put some points on the board. They put a bunch of points on the board against LSU. But there were some days where it was just kind of, it didn't really, it kind of, and so I do think there's a little bit of that where it should have looked a lot better a couple of different times. Look, everybody has a bad day, but 26 points against Missouri, 16 points against Kentucky, 27 points against Tennessee. Like, there were some, not quite at Georgia from Todd Monken and his offense. And what if it doesn't click right away for this Ravens team? Odell's hurt. He showed up on the injury report Thursday. Zay Flowers is a rookie. Rashad Bateman's been on the team, but he hasn't been in this offense. Mark Andrews, Lamar Jackson, J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards, Isaiah, they've been on the team. They haven't been in this offense. Right tackle's a little shaky. What if it doesn't click right away? Well, how do you go about making sure it doesn't click right away for the Ravens? Like, how do you go about disrupting what they do? This is one of the most important aspects of this matchup. A year ago, week 1, Baltimore Ravens, New York Jets. Who's the Jets coach? Robert Saleh. Who's DeMeco Ryans' buddy? Robert Saleh. Lamar Jackson rushes for 17 yards against the Jets. And I talked to Sheldon Rankins about this earlier in the week, and he's like, we did a really good job putting together a game plan that contained Lamar. And then he went out there and threw for 3 touchdowns. The Jets couldn't move the football. They lost the game. Like, a year ago, week 1, in a different offense given and a little bit more talented defense than what the Texans are running out there week 1, Lamar Jackson had 17 rushing yards and I think 251 passing yards, 3 touchdowns. Like, okay, 21 points, so that's going to be easy to get to. But at 21 points, that's not the craziest thing to think the Texans could put some points on the board. Containing Lamar is going to be tough. You've got the talented athletic linebackers to do it. Christian Harris is a really important aspect of this matchup because he's the only true sideline-to-sideline guy. Henry To'o, if he plays a little bit because Blake Cashman's hurt, his anticipation, his play recognition, he's going to be a key element of this. And the defensive line, not necessarily forcing Lamar to run, that's not necessarily what you want, but just keeping Lamar uncomfortable, but also not letting him get out and about. That's where you start thinking about, okay, like, you've got something going here from that standpoint. and you can, keep him in the pocket with some new receivers and a new offense, and maybe he makes a mistake. Maybe it's not clicking. Maybe somebody's running the wrong route because they haven't played a ton together in the preseason. Like, there's a chance this doesn't look good for Baltimore right away. Now, part of that is you got to keep Lamar in the pocket. You've got to cover guys like hell, and you've got to at least put some heat on him. Maybe it's from the 4-man rush. Maybe it's from a little blitz here or there, but there's got to be a lot of things go right to make sure that you're limiting what Lamar's going to do. You don't stop him. You got to limit what he can do on the field. And the comment D'Amico Ryans made that really jumped off the page to me and I thought was a pretty intriguing one is you have to almost be, and I'm paraphrasing, you have to almost be perfect in your decision-making at linebacker because you're going to be dropping back, maybe in that quarterback spy, or you're going to be in a zone and you're going to be seeing Lamar, and you have to be disciplined on knowing when do I go for Lamar, when do I attack, and when do I hold back. We saw it Thursday night with Patrick Mahomes. He'll roll out. He'll put you in a compromising position. And if you go to him too quick, he hits the wide receiver or the tight end or whatever. If you don't get to him fast enough, well, he gets the yards he needs. And Lamar is that, but the threat of the run is dialed up from where Mahomes is. And you think about some of these pass catchers compared to what the Chiefs ran out there, like there's some intriguing opportunities for Lamar to put the linebackers, the defensive players in a compromising position. And if they don't make the correct decision, they don't make the right choice, then boom, Lamar's taking off. I also wonder, too, how much of the comfort zone the rushing attack is. J.K. Dobbins is a talented guy. The knee injuries have sapped him a little bit over the past couple of years, but Dobbins and Edwards been around tandem for a couple of years now. They still got Justice Hill on the team. I wonder how much of all of that is still very much a focus. Their safe space, how they feel, stuff like that. I do wonder a lot about that aspect of the Ravens offense. And I don't know what to expect from them. I mean, yes, you added 2 wide receivers. Bateman's healthy. Andrews is pretty healthy. Yes, that's all. It's still the Baltimore Ravens. They're still going to try to punch you in the mouth on defense. And Lamar's going to make a play or two that just 1 or 2 other quarterbacks in the league can make. And it's going to be tough. It's going to be a tough one. But in a matchup like this, to pull an upset, to keep it close, the other team helps you a little bit. And the new offense, some mistakes maybe with guys that haven't played with each other, that's where you start to think, hey, the Texans may have a little something here. All right. Appreciate everybody tuning in on the stream tonight, and appreciate anybody and everybody that's visited our fine friends over at Underdog Fantasy. Underdog Fantasy is the best way to play fantasy football. They've got weekly drafts. That's right. I love the drafts. It's one of my favorite parts of fantasy football. They've got weekly drafts where you can draft a squad in just the 1-week slate. They've also got the daily Pick'em. And Pick'em is so much fun. You put a few predictions together in one Pick'em entry, and you could 20 times your entry in just one game. In just one game. Higher, lower on predicted stats, put it all together, get it all right, and you can 20 times in just one game. And as you see here on the screen, First-time depositors who use my code STOOTS, STOOTS, you're going to get 2 times your money on your first deposit, and you're going to get special Pick'em options all season long. Special Pick'em options all season long. Things like higher or lower on half a rushing yard, higher or lower on half a passing yard. They're basically freebies that you put into your Pick'em entry, and they help you 20 times your money in just one afternoon, evening, weekend. You can put different sports together. You can put college and pros together. I primarily stick to pro football. Too much volatility in the college game, but I'll sneak over there every now and then. So the link that will get you signed up with the promo code is in the description down below. I encourage you to check out Underdog Fantasy if you have never checked them out. And you know what? Let's do it live right now here on the stream. How about this? We'll do a little share screen. We'll head into the Underdog Fantasy website. This is Underdog Fantasy right here. Boom. This is the site. Let me get on here. Boom. You got my little picture here in the corner. It's so easy. Look, this is the drafts and stuff like that. Let's put a Texans entry in right now. Let's go to Pick'em. Let's type in Texans. All right. CJ Stroud, Dameon Pierce, Singletary, Nico, Robert Woods, Dalton Schultz. Okay. All right. Schultz, 3.5 receptions. We're going higher on that for sure. Robert Woods is the guy that they look to a lot here in this offense. 27.5 receiving yards. That's what, 4 catches? 5 catches? Especially if they get down, they're going to throw the rock a bit. I like higher for Robert Woods. 195.5 passing yards for CJ Stroud. Probably going to stay away from that one. 18.5 completions. I maybe stay away from that one. Dameon Pierce on the rushing yards. What do you guys think? Higher, lower on some of those rushing yards? For Dameon Pierce. I'm going to stay away from Pierce. So they can't all be on the same team. As you'll see, you got to select multiple teams. Well, let's go over to the Ravens. Let's see if they have any players that, okay, J.K. Dobbins to score a touchdown. Seems kind of crazy that J.K. Dobbins might not score a touchdown. 211 passing yards from Lamar Jackson is the prediction. Higher or lower on that? Ooh. An interception from Lamar? All right, let's throw Dobbins in there. He's going to score, especially if they get down to the goal line. They hand it to him. Justin Tucker. I don't love any of these. So I'm playing it pretty safe here. Just 3 selections in my entry. Schultz, Woods, J.K. Dobbins. Let's put 10 in it. You can even insure your entry so you can miss one and get it. But hey, $10. It's going to pay 60 if I get these 3 predictions correct. Let's go ahead and submit that. That's our Underdog Fantasy Pick'em entry for this week. It's that easy. It's that fun. Okay? It's that easy. It's that fun. You get your first deposit doubled up to $100. Up to $100 when you download Underdog Fantasy, the app, or you click the link in the description down below and get signed up. Underdog Fantasy, the best way to fantasy. Please game responsibly. Q&A time for everybody. All right, Q&A time. And if you have anything, throw it in there. We'll go through some of the questions here. We'll get to some of the stuff that I've starred that I might have missed in the past. Like Jim was asking me a fantasy football question. Quentin Johnston in LA or Treylon Burks? Oh, boy. I mean, you use a first-round pick on Quentin Johnston. Chargers got a new offense. Kellen Moore, throw the ball a little bit. I like him a little bit more than trusting a Tennessee Titans passing offense. So I'll go Quentin Johnston. Go Quentin Johnston for that one, Jim. TJ Trent asks, who is the number one wide receiver? So it's a loaded question because there's not really one way to answer this. Because there's a couple ways you can go about it. Who's going to end up with the most yards and catches? And who is the guy that is the number one wide receiver, like in the way that they play the offense? Like Woods is the guy to me that Stroud drops back, looks, he sees where Robert Woods is, and then he moves off of him. I believe Tank's going to be probably the guy that it ultimately finds himself with the most impressive receiving season. Like I'm in on Tank Dell. He has all the skills to go out there, annoy zone defenses. He's tough to defend man-to-man. So Woods is the guy that's the number one. I think when the season's all said and done, Tank Dell is going to be the guy that we're considering the top wide receiver on this team. Luis says, Cody, I love your show. Thank you, Luis. Johnny said higher on Dameon Pierce's rushing yards, and Rick said higher on CJ Stroud's passing yards. I'll go back and add them in. I'll throw a little, at 20 times $5, that's 100. So I'll throw those in. I'll put another entry for the crew. And I'll tell you what, if I do a show entry and we win, I'll peel off a little piece for party time, for a get together down the road or merch or freebies or stuff like that. So I'll peel off a little bit for any sort of entry that we win while we do on the show here. All right, so a couple questions about Jimmy Ward. I do not believe Jimmy Ward is going to play. Hip injury, missed 2 days of practice. If there was a guy that could not practice and play, I would tell you it's Jimmy Ward. So I'm not ruling him out until he's ruled out. But I don't believe he's going to play, and I wonder if the conversation about playing Jimmy Ward is if we play him in week one, there's a chance he gets hurt and he misses multiple weeks, versus if he misses week one, he's going to be good to go from then on. And you sort of weigh the consequences of playing him. Like, sure, we could play him, but if he re-aggravates this, then he's down for 3-4 weeks. Or he can rest, get to 100%, and we don't have to worry about him, but he definitely misses Baltimore. I do wonder if it's about weighing the consequences on that standpoint. Jim Davies, I'm excited for the start of the season for the first time in years. Cheers. I'm always excited for when football gets here, but there's hope to this season. And there's real hope. With Stroud and D'Amico Ryans and Tank Dell and Will Anderson and players like that and the excitement around that. There's a lot of hope to this team and a lot of fun potential to this team. And even with the record, and if the record's not great, there's still some intrigue and interest about this team because how well does Stroud play? How well does Will Anderson play? How well does the offense look? Like, is Bobby Slowick the guy to be running this team from an offensive perspective? Like, there's a lot of stuff that's intriguing outside of the results. And oh, by the way, I believe the results are still going to be good. Yeah, Brandon, we'll see that zone rushing scheme, man. It's going to be, you're going to need to see it. You're going to need to see it. Zadis Q, forget winning. I just want to be able to compete right away. I want the young guys to look decent. Yeah, competing week in, week out is going to be one of the biggest things. You can't have Miami from last year where they got their head bashed in for 30 minutes and then they played okay in the second half, and Lovie Smith had the audacity to go to the podium and say, well, he played pretty well in the second half. It's like, yeah, you were down 30-0. Miami didn't give a flip. So Who cares if you played good in the second half? You stunk the first half. The game was over at halftime. Crack one for the working folks and the people watching on the live stream. Appreciate you. Can't do this without all the people commenting, watching, and all those various fun things. Looks like we got a super chat. Johnny says, Cody, I live in Austin. I have family in Houston, was raised there. What home game should I go to? If you can get tickets, go to Pittsburgh. It may not be the most impressive game from the Texans playing. That's a pretty tough team to be playing. That's obviously J.J. Watt's induction into the Ring of Honor for this organization. And that's going to be a very special day for Watt, the organization, and the fan base. There's 2 games in November that, and don't clip this and act like I did the hook 'em horns. That's not what I do. I'm a guns up guy. There's 2 games in November that are just great chance to win, should be a team that they beat, and should be a team that they have a big day against. That's Tampa on November 5th, and that's Arizona on November 19th. Those would be the 2 days I'd be circling because people aren't going to be excited to watch Tampa come to town. Ain't no Tom Brady there. And people aren't going to be excited to watch Arizona come to town. So those are the 2 teams I would try to get to see a good Texans performance and best chance to see them win at home. Those would be the 2 that I'd try to get to. Plus, in November, the weather's nice. Tailgating's fun. Everybody at tailgating is super nice. Most places you can just roll up, introduce yourself, tell them you're from out of town. They'll take care of you. I'm trying to make some tailgate connections and hang out with some folks before the game. So the weather will be nice. November games, that November 5th against Arizona, the November 19th November 5th against Tampa, November 19th against Arizona. Those are the 2 that I would try to target if I was trying to come in, Johnny. Good question. Good question. How long is Ward out for? Man, I hope not too long. But I would also say, if you got to miss 2 weeks to make sure you play 15, do it. If you got to miss 3 weeks to make sure you play 14, do it. Don't play 1 week, miss 5, and then it's Jalen Petrie and Eric Murray back there at the safety spot for the majority of the first 2 months. Don't do that. STX Texan. Hey, Cody, barely able to get on the live. Hope all is well. All is well. And I heard from STX Texan this week, he got stickers. If you want stickers, I will send them in the mail. I've talked about how it is the era of good vibes. Let's see if I can do this without ruining the camera. It's the era of good vibes here in Houston. I got 2 colors too, by the way. Era of good vibes with the Texans right now. You want stickers? Hit my email, CodyStoots@gmail.com. CodyStoots@gmail.com. Hit my email, and I'll send you some stickers. I just send them right there through the good old-fashioned USPS, put a stamp on the envelope, send them out to you. All right? You don't have to do nothing for me. I'll send you some stickers. You want some stickers. Johnny says, Tank Dell will be the biggest playmaker. Woods will be first look. Schultz will be the safety blanket. I will be shocked. I'll be shocked and appalled if Dalton Schultz does not have a top 10 tight end season. I believe Dalton Schultz will have a top 10 tight end season. I believe they're going to look for him. You think about how the tight end was used in San Francisco. You think about who the reliable people are on this offense. And you think about who's had success the past couple of years. Schultz is 2 years removed from 800 yards and 8 touchdowns. Who's capable of getting 800 yards and 8 touchdowns on this team right now? Can Robert Woods do that? I don't know. I don't think so. Can Noah Brown do that? Can Nico do that? Schultz is capable of doing that and should have the opportunity to do that. I don't know if he's going to have his best season of his career, But Dalton Schultz, to me, is going to have a damn good season. I've been trying to get him like a dog in every fantasy, everything that I've put together. I've been trying to get him like a dog. I've done pretty good getting him in Underdog and in best ball, but my home leagues, haven't been able to get to him. How do you watch preseason and see how many targets Stroud sends Nico's way and put Woods over him? Because I watch all the practices and see how many targets he throws Woods' way. I see how consistent Woods gets open, and I see how many times he throws it to Nico and his pass is incomplete. Look, I want Nico Collins to be good. I just don't believe in Nico Collins to the level that a lot of people do. He hasn't shown it on a consistent basis. He's one of the best practice players on this team. It just doesn't translate to Sundays, and it hasn't translated for Nico on Sundays yet. And so I just am hesitant to get excited about Nico Collins being the top guy when it hasn't translated for a couple of years and he hadn't stayed healthy. Thomas, supporting from Fresno, California, Texans defense will ball out. I hope the offense can match them. Hey, or Tomas, excuse me. Tomas, hey, appreciate you. Appreciate you. Brandon says, can you bring in a fan for the whole show as a reward? I don't know about that, but if you do want to get in, you have a question, you want to ask it on the stream, I will put the link in there. I forget to do that sometimes. SDX text, that'd be cool. Weekly pick'em from the community. I don't know if you could do a poll in YouTube chat, like on Twitch. It'd be a cool way to do it. Hey, helping you guys help me decide what we do with the Underdog pick'em each week. We'll figure out a way to do it. Speaking of ways that you guys can interact with me and with each other, in the description down below, we got a survivor pool that we're putting together. Now, it's going to start in week 2. I wanted to give everybody time to get signed up. It's going to start in week 2. We got a survivor pool. You can sign up down below. The password is Houston, lowercase, all lowercase. Sign up for the survivor pool. If you beat me, you'll win a prize. If you win the whole thing, you'll win another prize. So sign up for the survivor pool, Houston Football Survivor Pool, down below in the description. Okay? So sign up for that and get in there. Start making your picks starting next week. STX Texas, I can see us winning like the Lions did today against a solid team. Not saying we're as good as the Lions, but the team will play hard enough to win tight games like that. Look, that's the thing, too. When you're down against a team you're maybe not supposed to be down against, I know the Lions are better than they have been. Sometimes teams get tight, and it's like, oh, brand new wide receiver, Zay Flowers, brand new wide receiver in this offense, Odell Beckham. Are they going to make some mistakes? I mean, Kadarius Toney handed the Lions the game. It's like, is somebody going to make some mistakes? You need when you're an inferior team, you need the good team to help you out a little bit. Okay? You need somebody to help you out. We got a couple people backstage. Let's get to some of these comments, some of these folks. Johnny wants to weigh in. Johnny, what do you got for us, man?
What's up, Cody? I'm excited to be on the show, man. I followed you at the Wheelhouse. Like I said, I live in Austin, Texas. I was raised in Houston. I don't know if you know where Splendora is at.
Oh yeah,
a little bit north of Houston. I'm excited to be on here, man. My question to you is, what do you see from DeMeco Ryans? What do you see this foundation that we've built and this excitement that we have around the city? They have, Bun B coming in. They have all these guys from around the city. They have Andre Johnson coming back in. What do you see DeMeco Ryans doing with this organization? And what do you see Nick Caserio even? Maybe I would clue into that. Do you see Nick Caserio fitting into that?
Good question. Johnny, appreciate that. So DeMeco is just energy. Like, it's energy, it's positive vibes, and then it's credibility. Like, David Culley didn't have credibility. David Culley, before he got hired by the Texans, had 2 sentences on his Wikipedia page. Like, the credibility that DeMeco Ryans brings, not only from having played at a high level, worked his way up through the coaching ranks, coached one of the best defenses in football for a couple of years, Like the credibility that he brings and just the mentality and the approach, like so many times like guys are talented guys that end up as head coaches and then they just don't know how to operate things. I think about Freddie Kitchens in Cleveland. Freddie Kitchens operated an offense in a really good manner, had Baker Mayfield have one of the best rookie seasons ever, and they kind of handed him the reins, and he just didn't know how to work everything. And D'Amico feels like he knows how to work everything. One of the things he talked about what he's learned here in his time being a head coach since when he was hired to where he's like, hire good people, trust them to do their job, which is something that Bill O'Brien never did. He never trusted anybody to do their job. He was always trying to micromanage and pick and change things about people. So that, and then from a Caserio standpoint, look, the rumors, that didn't come from nowhere about the Caserio maybe leaving, unhappy, yada, yada. Winning will fix everything. They win enough games this year. They look good enough on a week-in, week-out basis. The Nick Caserio, D'Amico Ryans are going to want to keep doing this together. This thing goes south. It doesn't look good. Hey, by the way, Nick Caserio, we don't like the players you picked. See you later. I'm going to get somebody in here that I do like. Like D'Amico Ryans is calling the shots going forward for this organization. That's who the team's invested in. His contract outpaces Caserio's contract. And I feel like the organization is happy to hand the thing to D'Amico Ryans, but it's also not fun to write a 3-year, $6 million a year check to Nick Caserio to go do something else. You know, like, or however many.
They've done that. They've done that with Lovie Smith. They've done that with David Culley. Like,
yeah, well, you know,
gotta stop it sometime.
Exactly. You don't have, you got money. You don't have infinite money. You don't want to always be doing that. And I would think too, Caserio getting the elevated title, executive vice president of football operations, getting the elevated title in addition to the general manager job makes me think that there's some level of stability.
There's some fluidity.
Yeah. There's some stability there. Yeah. So, Johnny, got anything else?
I guess I really want to know what is your take on what exactly this Texans offense is going to look like? Do you think it's going to be more just run happy with Dameon Pierce? Or do you really think that they're handing the keys off to CJ Stroud and they're just saying, look, kid, figure it out. I know we have mediocre wide receivers. I know that we don't necessarily have the best offensive line, even though we were trying to. They signed 3 different extensions to 3 different offensive linemen. Do you think this is going to be a more run-happy, try to get through the season type of offense, or do you think they're handing the keys to CJ Stroud and they're just saying, look, kid, figure it out?
I wonder if it's initially going to look like the Purdy 49ers. Run the ball, trust the defense, don't try to make anything crazy happen. Now, they had more playmakers. They had McCaffrey and Debo and Ayuk and Kittle. They got more dudes. But, hey, go out there. If you see the pass, make the throw. You can make the throw. You've got the talent. Go out there, make the throw. If you don't see it, hey, take what we can get a couple of yards. I think the example of it was the second preseason game, and it was 2nd and long, and Stroud just, boom, Dalton Schultz, few yards, sets up 3rd and 6, and the next play is an 8-yard out to Robert Woods. Move the chains, keep going. Like, that, to me, encapsulates what they want out of Stroud right away. And then building on that, hey, the play operates. Hey, CJ, when we look back at the film, you made this decision. This was a good decision. Next time, can we make this decision? Because it would be a great decision. And I think back to Noah Brown over the middle in the second preseason game. And if he just waited a tick more, I think Nico's in the corner. But he saw Noah. He thought Noah Brown was open. He tried to make the throw. That's a good decision. But if he holds on to it a second longer, is Nico open in the corner? Is it a touchdown? Like, I think that's initially what they've got to do. He's got to go out there, experience it, go through it, and then you build on it from there.
Okay.
Johnny, appreciate you checking in, man. Safe travels when you get to come down that game, and make sure you let us know when you're coming. We'll try to link up at one of these tailgates.
Absolutely, Cody. Thank you so much for putting me on. I listen all the time. I listen to the Wheelhouse, like I said. Love your stuff, man. Keep doing it.
Thank you, Johnny. Appreciate it. If you've watched the show before, you know Brandon's been on here for. Brandon, what are you doing? What are we doing? You just finished working out? What are we doing? You finished working out? Now we're firing up a heater? Oh, hold on. You're muted. Let me unmute you. Oh,
I think it's still 90
go.
degrees outside in Houston.
Yeah, that's true. And don't worry. If I didn't think I'd get a YouTube violation, I'd do this shortless. So,
Okay, so I got a couple questions for you.
fire away.
So I know you kind of touched on that Aaron Wilson tweet. I was just asking that because I saw a lot of people talking about that Tank wasn't really going to play on offense.
No,
That-
he's going to play a ton.
I know that's what I don't know where people were getting this. I guess because he addressed I'm gonna do punt and return duties and that's it basically. I didn't see that, but
It was, I'm going to do punt return. That's it from special teams.
yeah, that's
Because
exactly
the follow up, because I was standing right there. The follow up was the first question was, how many kicks are you going to return? He's like, I'm not doing any kick return. And it was like, well, what do you do? He's like, I'm doing punt return, and that's it. So, you know, he gets open. You have to put him on the field. Like he has to play. He's one of the guys that gets open the most. He will play a lot. I do think there's you do have to manage the fact if he has a big punt return, maybe you're not running him right out there on the first couple of plays of the series.
for sure.
But so many punt returns are fair catches now. So, okay, punt return, fair catch, boom, he's right out there for the first couple of downs of the series. So I'm not super worried about doing a little bit of special teams taken away from his offense.
No, for sure. I got a couple more. Why didn't Will change his number, man? That 51 is ugly. He could have grabbed 13 or 0.
He does not care. It is so funny. He was on a podcast with Chris Long, Howie's kid who played for the Eagles and the Patriots.
For sure.
And Long was giving him a hard time about the number, and he's like, I don't care. He's like, guys gave me a hard time about 31 at Bama. Guys give me a hard time about 51 here. He's like, I don't care. So
I like that. I like that.
Will Anderson doesn't care. I did think it was funny, though. Tank changed his number from 13 to 3.
Yeah.
And I asked him, I was like, what was with the number change? He's like, well, I was 3 in high school. I just feel better in 3.
Okay.
And I was like, well, people are kind of upset. You messed up the 713 here, Tank.
Yeah.
And he's like, I know. He goes, it's all love. Please don't hate me for it. It's all love. He knew he kind of messed up the 713. It was pretty funny.
Okay.
Yeah. Anderson does not care. One more number thing
like
that I thought was really funny. And I was giving somebody, I was giving him a hard time. I was like, Shaq Griffin is 0 now. And that was Desmond King's number. And Desmond King obviously got cut and sent to the Steelers, or ended up with the Steelers. And I was like, does Shaq Griffin, does he take 0 in remembrance of Desmond King, or does he take 0 because he didn't like Desmond King, or he's like, oh, who cares? Desmond's not here. I'm taking 0. So I thought that was funny. What else you got, Brandon?
Okay, another little thing. So we got 2.5 years of drafts with Nick, right? So
yep.
So far, looking at it, I mean, Tank is really our only playmaker on offense. So we got our playmaker on defense with Will, right? Obviously, we did give up a lot. We gave up a lot, man. But he looks great. I like it. I do like it. But man, we gave up a lot. Looking at our next 2 years forward, we don't have a luxury of picks anymore. You know, we basically got our own picks, and that's it. You know,
for the most part, yeah.
For the most part, yeah. So I'm just wondering where. I mean, come on, man. One playmaker out this. I mean, maybe Hutchinson can turn into that. Maybe Nico can have a better year. But we've seen him for 2 years. We kind of know what he is already. So we got Tank. That's it. And I mean, I know Damian Pierce. You know, he's our running back. He can be a playmaker in himself. But as far as them guys that can really make plays, get the ball in their hands, and you know, open field in space, make plays, and I'm just starting to kind of question Nick a little bit here. I'm sure everybody has been, but man, that kind of hurts. 2.5 years, you only got one playmaker.
Man, so you're not wrong. I think when you put the context on what he had to deal with, it's hard to find those guys because I don't like signing free agent wide receivers. Like if I'm looking around the league and I'm signing free agent wide receivers, like you're in trouble. Most of those guys suck.
And
like
it costs money.
And they cost money and probably too much money. Like the two best free agent wide receivers this year were Jacoby Myers and Robert Woods. Like those are the two best guys, and you got one of them. So like that's the scary part about free agents. And then, damn man, you look at everything that he's had to kind of put together and rebuild. Like he's dumped a lot of assets in a lot of other places. Haven't found the play. Like Nico having a good season would go a long way, obviously.
And then we can't think. I mean, I know Mechie, you know, and his medical issues, that kind of hurts too. You know? Sure. But still, overall, it's like, man, where are these playmakers we need? You know.
I think I really do. If I could kidnap Nick Caserio and give him truth serum, I do believe the 2022 draft they were going to try to draft Jamison Williams, and they were going to be content with him sitting for the year or playing later in the year. And then they'd have him ready to go, hopefully not on a gambling suspension in that alternate reality where they do have him. And then they got outmaneuvered for him by the Lions, and that hadn't worked out for Detroit right now. Maybe it'd have been different in Houston, but obviously they end up with Kenyon Green. And I think, too, here's an important aspect of the offense the Texans run now. It is, I don't want to say it's built, but it is capable of supporting less talented position groups. Like this is an offense that across the league, when you have less talented guys, you can still perform pretty well with this offense if you have a guy that can operate it at a good level and you can run the football, which if Stroud's that guy and you can run the football with Pierce and this expensive-ish offensive line, then maybe you can succeed with maybe some lesser talent initially, but you definitely have to get some guys in there that can really change the game.
Yeah, my only thing about that is, I mean, he didn't know who was going to be coaching this year. So, 2.5 years ago, or, you don't know who's going to be coach. You can't bet that, we're going to be running zone scheme 2 years from now, that we're going to. That's all I'm saying. Like, you can take guys, even that Mills pick, for instance. Okay, if you weren't going to build around Mills, right? So that that's not your quarterback of the future. You're still going to wait to get your guy. Then why not get a playmaker? That way, when you do get your guy, your playmaker's already there. I'm just throwing out ideas here.
Look. I mean, Amon-Ra St. Brown went 23 picks after Nico, and you traded up to get Nico. Like that's not that's a miss to this point. Even if you're not talking about Amon-Ra St. Brown, like Nico has not paid off to this point. That's a miss. The John Mechie situation, that's been unfortunate. Mechie's not back yet. He hasn't helped you yet. Okay, well, that's football. Like Nick Caserio basically said it in his interview last week. He's like, look, it's a great story that John's back. But now John has got to be more than a story. I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but he's got to be a football player now, more than just a success story of coming back from cancer. And that's why you have two veteran wide receivers on this team that are, retreads from other offenses because you have had so many different things that you've had to invest in. And, if Nico was awesome, maybe you don't have Robert Woods. But
I mean, Woods, come on. I'm not discounting this guy. I like his leadership value and everything, but I mean, we need playmakers, Cody. I mean, playmakers.
The tough part about wide receiver is you either trade a first and more or 2 firsts for them when you think about Devontae and Tyreek, or you draft the guy. You look around football and most of the top wide receivers were drafted onto their team, and they're varying levels of commitment. Some of them are second-round guys like DK Metcalf. Some of them are and Tyler Lockett. Some of them are third-round guys like Terry McLaurin. And some of them are first-round guys like Justin Jefferson. But inherently, you draft good wide receivers, and they get better on your team. And that's how you find big-time wide receivers. And Nico and Mechie have not paid off to this point for whatever reasons. And then Tank Dell, you got some hope in him, certainly. But, that's only 3 swings at the wide receiver spot in, 3rd round or earlier. And so it's only 3 swings. You got to take some more swings here in the next couple of years. Just so happens, it's probably one of the most loaded wide receiver drafts ever coming up. And you still got your first. You've still got your second.
But we got the Browns first.
You still have a first. Excuse me. Yeah, still have a first. Have your second.
Yes.
So there's chances to take swings in the near future and get that young guy that grows with CJ, kind of like what you talked about maybe a moment ago.
Yeah, we got to.
Yeah.
I mean,
anything else, Brandon?
What do you think about Nick? Yeah, what do you think about Nick? How much longer do you think he's got?
I would say, based on the results this year, he probably has a conversation about, do I want to stick around with D'Amico? Does D'Amico want me to stick around? I believe they're going to be good enough that they want to keep that relationship going.
I think so too.
And at that point, like, if you don't want to, it's a great time to make the change because you're going to have one of the 5 or 6 biggest cap numbers in all of football.
And that's another thing. He really didn't have that big time spending. I mean, I know we had quite a bit of money last year, but it wasn't.
You're sitting there with
like
Deshaun's money and stuff like that.
Yeah. You got to give him that opportunity.
All the dead cap from all the other crappy players. Like, I really heavily will judge Caserio mostly on this draft because he had a full complement and a lot of stuff. Stingley and Kenyon Green last year, like, those are big ones for him. Like, there's a lot to judge Caserio on in 2023 that will figure out exactly what you want from 24, 25, and on.
For sure.
Brandon, appreciate you jumping on, man.
All right, talk to you later.
Good stuff. Good stuff from our guy, Brandon. All right, a couple more questions. And again, I think, look, we talked about it a little bit with Brandon. Nick Caserio faced a totally different situation than what he was sold he was going to face. Nick Caserio took this job thinking he was going to build a team around Deshaun Watson. And that's why the organization hired Nick Caserio, to build the team around Deshaun Watson. And then he never got that opportunity. If you knew you weren't going to have Deshaun Watson, would you have done something different at the general manager spot? Perhaps. I would say, though, Jack Eastery was always going to try to get his buddy in there, make sure that he sticks around. So, oh, Jim, don't say that name. Don't say that name. Tyler Linderbaum. He was one of my draft crushes in 2022. And Linderbaum, woo, he's good, man. He's real good. He's real good. Could have traded back to 20. You know, Caserio mentioned they had another trade back from 15 that they decided not to take. Could have been traded back from 20. Linderbaum, Karlaftis, you know, a couple of those guys. The other guard who went in the first round, Zion, who went to the Chargers, you know. Man. I will say this, though. All right. Christian Harris should be a nice player, has turned into a nice player at the linebacker spot. Let's see what he does here in 2023. Dameon Pierce in the 4th round, that's a nice snag. I believe Stingley is going to be better. Is he going to be Sauce? Probably not. People always hold that against Caserio. You know, Petrie's a really nice player. To'o is going to play a lot this year as a 5th rounder. I like Will Anderson and organizing and setting that up so that you have that. Scruggs played well before he got hurt. When he comes back, that's a nice player. There's some opportunities for Nick Caserio to stack some wins here. Okay? There's some opportunities for Caserio to stack some wins. Little Jesus. I don't know if you knew how much I like Jonathan Gannon audio, but Gannon from when he got hired, and he's like, explosives. And then Gannon from the Cardinals in-house YouTube channel asking his players if they took a damn bus to the stadium. Like, come on. Yeah, he's trying to find those guys that have fire in their gut. Exactly. Yeah, another player, Tyler Smith on the Cowboys. Nice player. A lot of guys in the first round and even in the second round on the offensive line played pretty well. Kenyon didn't, and obviously he's going to take 2023 to get ready for 2024. It turns into a make or break season for him, but definitely something to pay attention to. All right. Couple more. Zadis. Oh, shoot. Didn't think about that with Cashman out as total. I don't know if Cashman's for sure out, but, they got the injury lingering here, soft tissue. If he's not there, To'o gets the opportunity along with some of these other linebackers, Littleton, Hanson, guys like that. But To'o is the guy that played a lot in the preseason. What's your go-to from Whataburger? Number 2, meat, cheese, and mustard only. Not a huge fan of the rabbit food on there. So no lettuce, no tomatoes, no onions. But yeah, and then if every now and then I get the sweet and spicy bacon burger. But on that one I get no mustard because the barbecue sauce is good. Large drink, large fries, Coke Zero to drink. So yeah, I keep it pretty simple at the Whataburger. Ooh, good question. Top 3 game day food choices. Tough to go wrong with nachos. Nachos would be a good one. Especially if, you get the toppings appropriately spread out amongst all the chips. So nachos. I mean, wings. Wings are great. And then a dip and a dip accessory. I don't care exactly what it is. It could be chips and salsa. It could be chips and queso. It could be crackers and artichoke spinach dip. It could be crackers and buffalo chicken dip, whatever. There's a lot of it, dip and accessory, wings and nachos. Get the carbs going, baby. Get the carbs going. Number 5, jalapenos and a root beer. Yeah. Oh, the Buffalo Ranch chicken sandwich. All right, we got some Whataburger fans up in here. Oh, Luis says brisket for game day. Yeah, brisket. Fajitas. Oh, fajitas are good, man. Especially if you just cook the fajita meat and you got a couple of different ways you can serve it. You put it with some tortillas or you put it on your nachos. It's a good one too. I love going into a La Michoacana because they walk in here and they're like, what does this guy want in here? And I don't even try with my broken Spanish. And I just kind of point and tell them, and they know why I'm here for the giant things of meat. I love their preseason fajitas and I love the unseasoned fajitas. Man, that stuff cooks so fast too. So fast. You can whip up fajitas in no time. That banana pudding shake's dangerous, man. That's good stuff. That's good stuff. So Zadis brings this up here. It's going to be the hot hand at wide receiver. It's like whoever's having a good day at wide receiver, they're going to get the rock. And you hear hot hand a lot with running backs, but that's what the wide receiver situation is going to be. You're going to go hot hand with the wide receiver. So that's something to pay attention to. Okay. Plenty more stuff coming on the channel. Let's do a little housekeeping here as we wrap up. A little housekeeping. Down below in the description, you've got the Underdog Fantasy link. Underdog Fantasy, the best way to fantasy. You use my link down below. You're going to get 2 times your first deposit up to $100. It means you put in 10, you get 20. You put in 20, you get 40. You know how to double. You're going to get that. Use the link. The code should auto fill in for you. If it doesn't, STOOTS is the code. Join the survivor pool. That's in the description as well. Fill out the kickoff party questionnaire. That's in the description. We're shooting for the 12th or the 13th. We'll figure out exactly the day. I'll announce that. I'll email it out to everybody. We can get that thing off the ground. So, 12th or the 13th, fill out the questionnaire down there. Hit the like button if you haven't hit the like button before. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't subscribed before as well. Okay? So there's the housekeeping. Raffle will go live in the next couple of days. We'll have a new way to do it. I'll explain what it is. You're going to like it. You're going to want to participate in this raffle, so be looking for that as well. Check out Houston Football, where I do all my writing, www.houfootball.com. Did my NFL season predictions. We'll have some stuff about the Texans and betting on the Texans, some of the predictions for the season. We'll play the win-win, loss-loss game at some point. We'll do some of that stuff here on the channel as well. All right. So, hope everybody had a fantastic time. Appreciate everybody watching, the contributions, the likes, the thumbs up, the subscriptions. Thank you, everybody. The super chats are very, very appreciated. And if you're subscribed to Houston Football, there's obviously free content, but of course, we have a ton of content behind the paywall as well. I very much appreciate everybody taking care of me to that standpoint. And hopefully you are enjoying all the content on Houston Football and here on the channel as well. Love these late night ones. I mean, it's football season. We'll do a ton of these. We'll have some recorded videos and fun stuff like that on the channel as well. We finish up each and every live show the exact same way. It's my charge to you. I want you to do these things, but also I hope these things for you as well. Thank you, everybody, for watching, and I hope that you eat good, sleep good, and be good. We'll talk Texans again soon.